Alright, let's begin. So, in this video, we will have a discussion on how to perform two methods of numerical integration. So, in your Kaleng, we have learned that, sorry, naglulo ko yung stylus ko. We have this, diba? The point of integrating is so that we can determine the area under the curve f of x. So, essentially, for numerical integration, there are two ways for our discussion. We have the midpoint rule and the trapezoidal rule. So, for the midpoint rule, essentially it's based on the area of rectangles formed under the curve f of x. So, this is important, take note. Midpoint rectangles yan. For trapezoidal rule, this is based on the area of, it's from the word itself, trapezoid. So, trapezoidal. That is formed under the curve f of x over interval a to b. So, iba definite integral may interval tayo. So, from a to b. Ganun lang yan. So, let's focus first with midpoint rule. Suppose that f of x is a continuous function in a to b, wherein n means the number of rectangles with equal step size height are formed under f of x. And f of x, this is basically an asterisk. This basically means intersect at the midpoint of the rectangle. So these are the formulas that you have to know. No? Specifically, if what you're solving for is using the midpoint rule, kaya nga midpoint, diba? So the height is b minus a, the upper minus the lower limit, and then n basically means the number of subintervals. Normally, in a problem, you're given this information. Actually depends if you have to solve using more than two subintervals, but if you're given two, edi 2 yung nandito. Ganun lang yan. And then, okay, let's have an example where we apply this information. Again, x sub I asterisk is basically the midpoint, no? So, the formula for that is 1/2 times quantity x sub I minus 1 and then plus x sub I itself. So, kunyari, what we're looking for is x sub 1 asterisk. Edi 1/2 times x sub 1 minus 1, so x sub 0 yan. And then just copy x sub 1. Ganun lang yan. You apply the same logic to find x sub 2, asterisk, etc. Okay? So, let's have this example, no? Use the midpoint rule with 4, you're given the number of subintervals, so that you can compute for this particular problem. So, from 0 to 2, function square root of x dx. So, let's identify first. What is our f of x? So, that's our square root of x, diba? Ito. And what is our a? A is the lower limit, so 0. Upper limit is 2. So, from this information, we can say that our height, recall the formula for the height, it is b minus a over n. b minus a over n. b is 2, a is 0, so 2 over n being the number of subintervals. In this case, we have 4. So 1/2, 0.5 yan. Moving on. Let us now go to the iterations. We have now identified our height, and we already clarified what our f of x is, as well as the a and b, the lower and upper limit respectively. So iterations. How many iterations are we going to make? That depends on the number of subintervals that will be involved. No? Oops, sorry. Okay, so we always start with 0, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 4. 4 subintervals. Actually, we're not, lagyan natin ng space. Okay, oops. So, After that, we list on x sub I, and then x sub I asterisk, and f of x sub I asterisk. This is specifically gonna be our iterations if we apply midpoint rule. Because again, yung may asterisk, that basically pertains to midpoint. Ito, sabi. F of x asterisk is the intersect at the midpoint of the rectangle. Nga pala, let's, if it's hard to visualize, let me draw it. So let's say meron tayong ganito, diba? And we divide it into several intervals. How many intervals? Basta marami, no? When we say based on area of rectangles, it's actually like this. So this is a midpoint. This one's a midpoint. Also this. This. Hindi masyado mataas. Ito. So napapansin mo, hindi nasasakupan lahat, no? Okay, so that's basically the midpoint, yung green dot kanina. So, okay, we initially start with an x sub I of 0. And then, ang susunod ng mga nandito, we just add the height. In this case is 0.5. So 0 plus 0.5 is 0.5, plus another 0.5 is 1, plus another 0.5 is 1.5, plus another 0.5 is 2. Ganun lang yan. So now, this is the part where we apply this formula. So to be more specific, we start with this one. No? Paano natin gagamitin yan? 1/2 times quantity x sub 0. So x sub 0, ito yun. Plus x sub 1, in this case is 0.5. So 1 plus, 1/2 times quantity 0.5 plus 0. This is, sorry, dito wala, no? Just put a dash there. This one is 0.25. Okay, again, this is x sub 1 asterisk. Okay, and then, susunod for x sub 2, x sub 2 naman to. Tapos ito x sub 1. I hope you can follow with the logic. So, x sub 2 is 1. Tapos we still use x sub 1, 0.5. So 1/2 times quantity 1 plus 0.5 is 0.75. Okay? So you just do the same thing. Eventually you will find that x sub 3 asterisk is 1.25, x sub 4 asterisk is 1.75. And then yung how you find this is basically, since alam mo na yung kunyari for x sub 1 asterisk it's 0.25, i-substitute mo lang sa f of x. That's the reason why earlier we wanted to clarify muna. We wanted to be clear about what our f of x is, so that later, kunyari f of x sub 1 asterisk, this is gonna be equal to diba square root of x, so substitute mo lang square root of 0.25, which in this case is 0.5. So ilagay mo dito 0.5. Okay? Applying the same logic. How about for x sub 2 asterisk? Edi ganyan. Square root of 0.75 in this case is 0.8660. Ideally, you list down the value in decimal form. Okay? X sub 3 asterisk naman, so 1.25, square root niya is 1.1180. And then, for f of x sub 4 asterisk, same thing. So, ang lalabas dyan is 1.3229. Okay, so we are done with the tables. This is the part where we use this formula. So, from, again, list natin yung yung given. So that is from 0 to 2, square root of x dx equals what is our height? Height is 0.5 times quantity f of x sub 1. In this case, it is 0.5. And then, ito naman, 0.8660 plus 1.1180 plus 1.3229. So, calculate lang. Ang lalabas dyan, 1.9035. That is how you perform midpoint rule. Okay? Next, what if we wanted to answer the same problem such that we use trapezoidal rule instead? More specifically, multiple interval. No? Kasi for trapezoidal rule, there are two approaches. One is if you solve using multiple interval, and the other is if you use the formula for single interval instead. So let's have a formal introduction muna for the trapezoidal rule. So how's it different from the midpoint? So again, this is based on the area of a certain shape. For midpoint, rectangle siya. For trapezoidal, trapezoid. So suppose function is continuous, it's actually same condition lang yun sa kung ano na yung binanggit ko kanina. So where n is the number of trapezoidals with equal step size h are formed under f of x. So these are the formulas. They are not so different when it comes to trying to memorize the formulas from what we have for midpoint rule. No? So height pa rin is here, then times quantity. This time, since this is trapezoidal rule, there is no more midpoint. So wala na tayo asterisk values. No? So what we have instead is, for multiple interval, 1/2 f of a and 1/2 f of b, magkabilang dulo. And then what's in between that we add together, f of x1, f of x2, etc. So that basically depends on how many subintervals will be involved. No? So kung 4 subintervals, just like the example that we will work on later, hanggang f of x sub 4 dito. No? So that is for multiple interval. What if we have single interval only? In this case, the formula is gonna be like this. Actually, yung h dito, it's the same formula here, b minus a over n. But for single interval, our n is always gonna be 2. Okay? That's an important detail to take note of. So, we already discussed na yung mga formulas, no, for trapezoidal rule. Let us now answer. So, same problem. 4 subintervals. Okay, so use trapezoidal rule. For a standard, for this video, we are going to round off to 4 decimal places now. Just like what we did earlier. Hindi ko nabanggit earlier. Anyways, so f of x, still square root of x. A is 0, b is 2. Okay? So now let's look for the height. By the way, we are going to solve this using multiple intervals. Not single interval, no? The only difference is whether you use the shorter formula or the longer formula. So try na natin yung mas mahirap para masulit. So b minus a over n. In other words, the height, no? 2 minus 0 over 4 subintervals, this is still 0.5. Okay? So now that we have the height, let's move on agad to the iterations. Again, we start at 0, 1, 2, and then 3, and then 4. And then x sub I, and then f of x sub I. Okay? And then, ano pa? So, as usual, x sub I, kapag ang I natin is 0, no? So, yeah, let's move on. Applying the same logic from what we did earlier, where did we get these values? So starting from 0, you just add the height. So 0 plus 0.5 ito. And then plus 0.5, 1. Plus another 0.5, 1.5, etc. We apply the same logic. So the height is 0.5, edi ito 0.5 din. Plus another 0.5, 1. They add another. That was 1.5 na yan. And then 2. Okay? So now, as a trapezoidal method is actually simpler in the sense na we don't have to look for midpoint. For example, f of x sub 1, that's just a square root of 0. So 0 ito. How about for... sorry. My bad. This is supposed to be f of x sub 0, no? Kasi sub 0 yan. For f of x sub 1, that's a square root of 0.5. In this case, it's equal to 0.7071. Okay? And then, next, kapag 1 naman to, for f of x sub 2, that is going to be still 1. How about 1.5? So that's going to be 1.2247. And then, for f of x sub 4, magiging 2 ito. So that's going to be 1.4142. Okay? So we are done with the iterations table. Let's bring out now our formula. Siguro unahin muna natin ng multiple interval. Then later, if ever we have to solve it using single interval only, try natin din. Okay, so the height is again 0.5, no? Times 1/2. F of A, this is our f of A. F of B. Yung magkabilang dulo, no? Dito, ito yun. Magkabilang dulo. So, okay. That's just 0. F of x sub 1 is this. And then f of x sub 2 is this. F of x sub 3 is this. F of x sub 4 is this. And then 1/2. Ito na pala yun. F of B, no? And then times 1/2. Ayun na yun. And then just calculate. Eventually, your answer is gonna be 1.81945. Okay? So, that's for multiple interval trapezoidal rule. What if single interval lang? Let's try out this formula. What if ito yung gagamitin natin? So, we are going to... We're not gonna use the same iteration table since we are not gonna involve 4 subintervals. Dalawa lang, no? B minus A, so that's 2 minus 0, still 2 divided by 2, 1. Times quantity, f of A being still 0, and f of B, that's gonna be this, no? 1.4142. So that's the final answer. Ganun lang. It's very easy. So from in that sense, we basically disregarded all of these. Ito lang at ito lang ang nasa single interval. Okay? Okay, so what if, I guess to make this video complete, what if we wanted to solve such that instead of involving the midpoint, but at the same time we're still using a basis of area of rectangles, solve natin right and left. To be more formal with what I'm saying, what if we wanted to solve the same problem, from 0 to 2, no? Square root of x dx. Right point at saka left point. We're still in rectangular method, no? This is on the rectangular method, rather. So actually, our solution, if we don't use the midpoint rule, we use these two instead, either of those two, you actually need the iterations from the trapezoidal rule. Because again, we no longer need our intervals, our midpoint values. We don't need these if our rectangular method is right point or left point. So wala tayo asterisk basically. So with that said, for right point, ang area natin, so diba this is for midpoint rule. Copy paste natin. So this is for midpoint. How is this formula going to change if it's gonna be right point? So b from a to b f of x dx is gonna be equal to the height. Nandun pa rin yung height. But this time, right point, no? So we start with f of x sub 1. Then f of x sub 2. And then etc. In this case, since we still have instruction to involve 4 subintervals, hanggang f of x sub 4 tayo. That is for the right point rectangular method. For left point, how is this going to change? We start with 0 and then we end at 3. I hope you see the difference. So for right point, we started with 1 and then ended with 4. Sa left point, we started with 0 always and then ended with x sub 3. So how do we apply that? Right point muna tayo. So height is 0.5. F of x sub 1 is ito, no? 0.7071 plus f of x sub 2, that is 1. And then 1.2247. And then 1.4142. So what we get is 2.1730. So yan ang sagot kapag right point rectangular method ang ginamit natin, no? What if left point? So let's substitute. This time, f of x sub 0 is involved, so 0 lang yan, no? And then f of x sub 2, f of x sub 3, wait. This is supposed to be 1, 2, 3. Okay? I apologize for that. Okay, so if we find the sum of basically kapag nilagay na natin to sa calculator, what we get is 1.4659. Okay, so that's the answer kapag left point rectangular method ang ginamit natin. Okay, so that's everything. That basically sums up everything under midpoint rule, trapezoidal rule, and kapag rectangular method, right point, left point din ang ginamit natin. So let's make a formal summary. Although at this point, I think we're basically done. Numerical integration, we have trapezoidal rule. Under it, we have the option for multiple interval and single interval. And then we have rectangular method. Under it, we have three approaches: midpoint rule, right point rectangular method, at saka left point. No? For right and left point, we basically need to use the iterations that we develop as if we are solving using trapezoidal rule. Yung iterations ng midpoint rule is very specific for solving the problem by midpoint rule. It's only specific for midpoint rule, basically. Okay? So, oh yeah. If ganito ang itsura ng midpoint rule, what about trapezoidal rule? Trapezoidal rule, ganito lang siya. Ganyan. So, yeah, that's basically it. Hindi siya yung parang may mga ganun-ganun pa. Okay? So that's it. Thanks for watching.